Hi, this is Teddy, and you're listening to A'shanti Gholar from Emerge America on Two Broads Talking Politics, part of the Debcast Podcast Network. Stay home and save lives.
Hey everyone, this is Kelly with Two Broads Talking Politics, part of the Demcast family of podcasts. I am joined by Sophie, who's finally dug herself out of the work that she's been doing in the past month. So hello, Sophie.
Hello, Kelly. Good to be back.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you back. And today we are joined by A'shanti Gholar, who is the president of Emerge. Hello, A'shanti.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm so thrilled that you could join us on the podcast today. So I want to talk all about Emerge and women running for office, but I heard this great story about how you first got interested in politics, and I wonder if you could share that story with us.
My C-SPAN story? I sure can. So for me, one day I was on the couch with my mom. We were watching TV. She got up and, like little kids do, I changed the channel to what I want to watch, and I discovered C-SPAN. And I was just all, what is this? There's all these people yelling and arguing about how to make the country better. And I was just super intrigued. But one of the things that I realized even at a young age was I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me. I didn't see a lot of people of color, and I didn't see a lot of women. So even though I knew I absolutely loved this thing that I eventually found out was politics, I didn't know if I had a place in politics because, again, representation really matters. Fast forward to being in high school, I had that really great government teacher, Mrs. King, and she knew the candidates that were running in a very high-profile race that cycle. She brought both of them in. There was a Democrat, there was a Republican. The issue that was really important to me was the minimum wage. I worked a part-time job. I had other friends that worked part-time jobs to have extra money to help support their families. And of course, I thought we should all make more. I asked the Democratic candidate, what are your views on the minimum wage? He said, yes, I'm all about it. We should raise it. Perfect answer for me. I asked a Republican, why didn't you vote to raise the minimum wage when you were in Congress? And he said, oh, no, I voted to raise it. To which I said, no, you didn't. He's like, yes, I did. And he literally just starts arguing with me. We're going back and forth. And I was just really insulted and let him know I actually can look up your votes and you did not vote to raise it. And he basically told me I didn't know what I was talking about. After class, my teacher called me over. And of course, I'm thinking, woo, I'm in trouble now for arguing with him. But he admitted to her that he did not vote to raise the minimum wage. And he didn't like that I had called him out. And I'm just sitting here thinking, just growing more angry. Was it because I was young, because I was a girl, because I couldn't vote? All of those things were true. But I also knew I could volunteer. So I volunteered for his opponent every single free moment that I had. And his opponent won that race by less than 500 votes. And that showed me the power that people really have in politics. Even if you're young, even if you're a woman, even if you can't vote at that time, that you do have the power to influence, to help candidates get elected, to encourage other people to vote. And that moment is what really got me hooked on politics. And I've just been very fortunate to have a series of women who trailblazed in politics, who saw a lot of things in me that I didn't see in myself and mentored me and supported me. And I'm now on week 10 of being the president of Emerge.
I love that. That is so fantastic and such a hopeful story. Really inspirational, I think, for kids who are thinking about what difference can I possibly make. So tell us some then about Emerge and how Emerge started and what it does.
Yes. So we are actually celebrating our 15th year of Emerge America, which is our national organization. But Emerge California was created in 2002 by a group of women who looked around their very progressive state, their very progressive city of San Francisco, and realized there still weren't a lot of women in elected office. So they wanted to come together and create a training program that really demystified what it takes to run for office, but create community amongst the women and provide them a network of support. And that was the catalyst for why Emerge was created. We do an in-depth signature 70-hour training program that is run over 5 to 7 months. We take up to 25 women in the program, though some of our affiliates have taken up to 50 women, because as we grow and more women are running to run, we are expanding our numbers in the program. But once the women are done with the training, they continue to be a part of the Emerge family, and we provide them a network of support. So as they decide to run for office, they still have the local executive director and board of directors to turn to help. They have the national team to connect them to partners. And when they're in elected office, we're still able to connect them to other women in the Emerge network who are serving in those roles or who have served in those roles, so that they're not lonely. And again, learning this new process as they were when they were running, because we know now you got to learn how to serve. We continue to be there for them. Emerge America was created in 2005 because women saw how successful Emerge California was, and they wanted to replicate the program. We are now in 27 states, which is fabulous. We just launched Emerge Texas. We've done a lot of expansion into the South, which is wonderful. And now, like a lot of organizations that really pride themselves on in-person training, we are really focusing on how are we supporting our alums and other Democratic women to campaign during COVID, because obviously it did turn the world of campaigning upside down.
I was interested to see that you guys do have a campaigning through crisis webinar series. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what is that, and sort of how does it help people learn to campaign during COVID-19?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things that we immediately had to think about was, how do we support our alums during this time? We provide this network of support, ongoing support. This is one time where our alums really need us, but we cannot connect with them in person. So the fabulous team here immediately produced a campaigning during crisis series. Okay, now what? You can't go door to door. Fundraising has changed. Your messaging has changed. What do you do? So we created this 5-part series where we walk through all the things that you need to think about now. You have to talk about rewriting your campaign plan for a pandemic. What's different now? Some of the things that we talk about is your election date may have changed. We know that so many states are pushing back their elections, but we also know that there are states like Wisconsin where after such a long fight, they still had their standard election day. How do you deal with all of this? Your constituency may have changed. Here we're talking about college students. So if you had a large population of college students in your town, they're all gone home. So who are you talking to now, since you do have that large part of your voting base that is gone? How are you reformulating your message right now to make sure that you're talking to your constituents about the things that matter? We know that communication during this time is really important. So what are you saying, but also how are you saying it? You can no longer do field, which is your door knocking or doorbelling, depending on what part of the country you live in, your phone banking. So we talk about new tools that you can use so you're still reaching your voters. Are you doing virtual phone banks and rallies? The same thing with how are you fundraising? Because we know one of the things people love is being able to go to that event and pay their $25 or their $50 and hear from this woman who's going to change the community. how are you still being able to do that by moving your events online? So we talk about some of those tactics, but the big thing is you are now really running a digital campaign. So how are we helping you make sure that you're just tying everything together so that you can still run a strong campaign during this time?
One of the things I think we're seeing in the response to COVID around the world is how well some of the countries that are run by women are handling response to pandemic, keeping the curve down. And not just because they're women, but, there seems to be something there. So what are some of the things you think would be different in general in politics in this country? But then, even more so in this moment of crisis, if we had more women in positions of power.
Something that we are talking about at Emerge is why leaders matter, but particularly why women leaders matter. It was very obvious from the onset of this pandemic that we were not going to get the leadership that we need and that we deserve as a country from the top. So we needed to count on our state and local leaders. At Emerge, we actually have an office in San Francisco. So we actually started moving our teams to work from home and sheltering in place very early. And that was because of San Francisco Mayor London Breed, who is an Emerge alum. She was one of the first mayors of a major city in the country to begin implementing social distancing for large groups. And if you look now, there's so many great pieces on her. The Atlantic just had one where it talks about how San Francisco is going to be one of the first cities to flatten the curve, and that's because of her efforts. We also have to think about, with women in elected office, we think about the entire community. We immediately start saying, everyone shelter in place, stay at home, it's the safest place for you to be. But our Emerge alum, Rachel Rollins, who is the district attorney in Suffolk County, Massachusetts, was very quick to point out that home really is not safe for everyone. And she was very proactive in her efforts to protect victims of domestic violence and ensure that they were not further victimized at home, because unfortunately something that we are seeing during this time is an increase in domestic violence. So she wanted to make sure that they were not being left behind during this time. We also have alums like Colorado State Representative Leslie Herod, who she worked with the Colorado Attorney General to call on creditors to exercise restraint in mandatory debt collection during the pandemic, because obviously people were losing their jobs. And then you have our other alum, Sarah Gideon, who's the Speaker of the House in Maine. She's running for Senate out there. We're super excited. She introduced legislation that supported healthcare professionals and workers in the front lines of the crisis, because we're also having the big conversation about them not getting the protections that they need so that they can take care of everyone, but then also providing relief for small businesses that needed it. Because again, we know that Congress just passed the CARES Act and there's supposed to be all of this money for small businesses, but it's not reaching the small businesses. So absolutely, when you look around our country, even though it's not led by a woman, in the highest office in the land, the things that are getting done, the cities that are doing well, cities that are making progress, do have really great women in elected office. And one more alum that I have to highlight, because I just think this is adorable what she did, is Congresswoman Kim Schreier. She is the only woman physician in Congress. So that's also something for us to think about, the fact that Congress is constantly talking about healthcare. We're in the middle of a health pandemic. There's only one woman who's a doctor in Congress, but Dr. Schreier's background is as a pediatrician. So one of the things that she started doing was holding Facebook conversations for kids to help answer their questions about the pandemic so they wouldn't be so scared. So when I think about what makes me hopeful during this time, it is the fact that we have so many women being the leaders that we need during this time. And it does show why who our leaders are really does matter.
I'm wondering if we can talk a little bit about 2020, because women have really been the political story of the United States since 2016. a lot of the movement against Trump has been led by women. A lot of the success of the Democrats taking back the House in 2018 was attributed to energy among women, and Emerge played a really important role in that. Mm-hmm. And now there's a lot of questions about, are we going to continue to see that kind of energy from women running for office in 2020? Do you get the sense that that energy has continued from 2016?
Absolutely. One of the things that actually really bothered me about the conversation about the increase in women running was people kept calling it a wave. And I really disagree with that, because this is not a wave. This is a movement. It's a movement that Emerge has been a part of for 15 years. Making sure that we are recruiting women from all walks of life, all backgrounds, different parts of society to run for office. What we saw in 2016 through now was just more women stepping up to run. And that is because of the groundwork that organizations like Emerge, Emily's List, Vote Run Lead, She Should Run have been doing over the years. And we have these structures in place to help these women. And when we also say that, oh, it was a wave, or, really kind of discounting if the energy is going to continue, we don't look at the fact that so many of the women who have been elected, particularly to higher offices over the past few years, have been women that were already serving. So they were just advancing in their careers into higher levels of public service. Congresswoman Deb Haaland from New Mexico, one of the first Indigenous women in Congress. She was the chair of the New Mexico Democratic Party. This was her moving on up. We know Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley from Massachusetts. She was the first woman to serve on the Boston City Council. She moved on up to Congress. So it's not only about the fact that we have new women who are entering, who are excited about serving, but it's also these other women who are continuing to step up into higher leadership positions, which is so important. And another thing that I'm seeing with why this energy is continuing is why we have momentum is in 2016, after Secretary Clinton lost, you had women wake up and say, okay, if not Hillary, then who? Then me. It has to be me. I have to be the one to step up and serve. And now what we're seeing is the next generation of women who are being inspired by those women who were inspired by Hillary. They're seeing these women put their name on the ballot, serve, do it all while working full-time jobs, being moms, running businesses. That's why this momentum is going to keep going, because women are really seeing more women like themselves in elected office.
So you mentioned that when you were a kid, you didn't see elected officials who looked like you. I remember being a kid thinking, there's never been a woman president. Someday there will be. And, of course, that hasn't happened still yet. What do you think this primary, if anything, sort of does to motivate us to work even harder? Like, what will it take now? We saw such a wonderful, diverse primary on the Democratic side, and then we got down to the end, and there were two white men who were running. Mm-hmm. So what? Obviously, that's not the end. We keep moving forward, but sort of what are your words of advice and inspiration to keep us moving forward, to see that there is progress being made, but obviously we still have further to go.
And I think you really hit on it with the beginning of this question, is me not seeing a lot of women who look like me, or just women in general. When I was younger, wanting to be in politics, I love the fact that young girls got to see all of these women unapologetically running for president of the United States. And each one of them was so fabulous. I know my niece, my family thinks that I'm really the one pushing her to politics, but she's gravitating there on her own. She's just like her auntie. She loves seeing all of these women. And for me, in particular, I love Senator Warren's pinky promises that she did. I think those were just so important and just so dynamic in letting young girls know at an early age that this is what girls do. They run for president and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And then on social media, you would see the parents posting the videos because now their daughters wanted to lead in Girl Scouts, that their daughters were running for student council, even when they were in, elementary school. That is going to be so important in us having a woman president in the future, which I know we're going to have one, absolutely claiming it. And I really can't wait too when all of those little girls who did the Pinky Promise want to run for office and do the Emerge program. Very much looking forward to that day. But even when we're talking about vice president, that is really us too, saying that we can have a woman president one day, that we have this long list of qualified, strong women who can serve. That is saying there is no shortage at all of women who can be president of the United States.
So I imagine at this point in the conversation, people listening are like, all right, great. I want to do it. I want to run for office.
Yeah.
So if we have women listening who are interested in running for office, what is the next step? How do they get involved in Emerge?
The next step is absolutely do it. We would love to have you become a part of the Emerge Sisterhood. You can visit our website, www.emergeamerica.org. We're also on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, @Emerge America. Sign up for our email list. Go sign up for the email list for your local affiliate and let us help you get started on your path to elected office.
So I live in Illinois, and there's not yet an Emerge Illinois. Could there be? What's the process for expansion?
So we are all about our expansion, but unfortunately we can't do it right now because we are all social distancing and doing our part. But we also do host regional boot camps. So if we're not in your state, we are doing boot camps across the country when we can again, that women can participate in, because we do want to help out as many women as possible.
Do you have any words of advice for women who are just trying to get through this moment without losing sight of the future and the country we could be after we get through all of this?
No, I'm a very optimistic person, and I know times are very hard right now, but I do think we will come out of this better, and it will be due to all of the women who are serving in elected office and those who are going to step up and run and want to serve. So during this time, definitely look around to see who's on the ballot in your city, in your state. Identify the great women and figure out how you can help them. There still are things that we can do from home. So if there's that woman whose issues are really speaking to you, or you see yourself in her, find ways to help out her campaign, because women candidates, they always need support, but they definitely need our support now. The vote is obviously very key and essential, but we need to help make sure that they get lots of votes so that they can serve us in elected office.
I love that. So, A'shanti, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. And thank you for all of the incredible work that you do, both that you've done with Emerge and that you've done with your podcast. Just really, really appreciative of everything you've done.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to join your awesome podcast and talk about the work of Emerge.
Thank you for listening to Two Broads Talking Politics, part of the Dimcast Podcast Network. Our theme song is called Are You Listening? Off of the album Elephant Shaped Trees by the band Immunuri, and we're using it with permission of the band. Our logo and other original artwork is by Matthew Weflin and was created for use by this podcast. You can contact us at twobroadstalkingpolitics@gmail.com or on Twitter or Facebook at twobroadstalk. You can find all of our episodes at twobroadstalkingpolitics.com or anywhere podcasts are found.